Hey, what's up? My name is Daniela and welcome to a new video. So in this video I'm going to be talking about my 2021 reading stats, and 2021 wasn't great in several aspects, but also as a reading year. So it wasn't great when I think about my rating and also when it comes to the number of the books I read, but also how I generally feel about the reading year, which is just meh. I like looking at stats anytime, but I also want to look at them and see if I can find any reasons why I didn't love my reading year. So that would be interesting. Obviously there's always an element of luck, but maybe there are some other reasons. Okay, so yeah, glasses are on and let's look at the stats. So in 2021 I read 50 books, which is a decent number, but it's also less than in previous years. So at the beginning of 2021 I didn't really set any official goals because I wasn't really in the place, and I set my Goodreads goals at 30, which was a pretty random number except for the fact that I was turning 30 last year, so it was kind of corresponding to that and to the fact that I thought that maybe I would read less than in previous years, which I did. But as we were approaching the end of the year I saw that I had a chance of reaching 50, so that was quite motivating to be close to that milestone, and I ended up the year reading exactly 50 books. When we look at the previous years, I read 65 in 2020, 79 in 2019, 67 in 2018 and 80 in 2017. I deleted the previous history from my Goodreads, but I also think that maybe I didn't set Goodreads reading goals before that. When it comes to the stats that Goodreads provides, I don't find them particularly interesting, like the longest book, like shortest book, whatever. What I thought was interesting was my average rating for 2021, which was 3.7, which is definitely much lower than it was. I remember that it was maybe 4.1 in the previous years. So yeah, it went down, and I mean, I already know one of the reasons, which I will get to shortly. And yeah, the rest of them not really interesting. So let's look at my stats. Okay, so the first stat I have here is read in a month, and look at this mess. I mean, you can clearly see I was in a reading slump in the middle of the year. So we started quite solidly with 4 books in January, February. Then March we got 8. I don't remember if there was some readathon, maybe, I'm not sure. And then it just went down. It was really dead during the summer. I was moving during the summer, so it was a mess. And then it went up in the fall, and in November I participated in 2 readathons. I participated in Nonfiction November and Netgalley November, so that definitely helped me a lot to read more books. Not necessarily with my enjoyment, but at least I got some books off my TBR, especially Netgalley TBR, and we ended up December with 4. Then we have star rating, which is one of the most ridiculous to me because I'm not that hesitant to give a book 5 stars, but I only had 3 5-star books. 3! Can you believe it? I certainly can't. Only one star read, which is good, 2 2-star reads, but just a whole bunch of fine and not just quite there. 3 and 4 stars. I know that I mostly gave 4 stars because I mean it's more than fine, like it's really good, but at the same time it didn't reach the point where I would give it 5 stars, which means that I didn't connect to it a lot emotionally or whatever. So this one is really sad for me because I like giving books 5 stars and connecting deeply to it, you know. So it's not like I read bad books in 2021, although some were pretty bad, but I just didn't read enough amazing books, and that's what I really feel, and which sucks. But 2022 is already starting out better. Like, can you believe that like we are in the middle of January, not even that, and I already had 2 5-star reads this month. and I had 3 for the whole year of 2021. That's just ridiculous. Okay, then we have audience chart, and this isn't really surprising to me. So we have the majority of adult, 35 books, then some young adult, 14, and 1 middle grade. And this is quite funny because the 1 middle grade actually ended up in my best books of the year, which is a video that will eventually come out. It wasn't a 5-star read quite, but it ended up among the best, so that makes me think that I should pick up middle grade more. I never kind of feel like it, but when I pick it up, I usually end up loving it, which I think is partly also because I only pick up like the best of the best according to BookTube, so the books that are really highly recommended by people who read a lot of middle grade, and so that might be a good strategy. Then we have genre, and this one is a bit surprising to me. I mean, contemporary at the first place isn't that surprising, but fantasy at the second is a bit surprising. I read a few like series, I guess, so that ramped it up, but I think nonfiction used to always be in the second place. Now it's number 3, and then we have only a few from other genres. So yeah, my thriller reading definitely decreased. In the recent year or two, I found that I didn't really feel like picking them up much. Some disappointed me, and also I found some quite anxiety inducing and not really what I needed most of the time. Sci-fi, I could read a bit more sci-fi because when I pick it up, I usually end up really enjoying it. So we'll see about that. Classics too, and those were Jane Austen books. I'm fine with that. I had to read a whole shit ton of classics in college and high school, so I'm mostly good. And one poetry collection which I would definitely like to read more poetry, but it's just kind of hard to pick it up, and it's often emotional and depressing. But yeah, I would like to read more poetry in 2022. And it's not even one of my like official goals, which that video is also coming out soon. But yeah, if I read more than one poetry collection this year, it will be nice. I was also thinking about like, how do you define your favorite genre, or how can you tell? And there's definitely one thing I realize is true for contemporary, and it's not true for like fantasy or well, mostly for fantasy or sci-fi, I guess. And that's the fact that with contemporary, I'm okay with picking up a random book that isn't hyped, isn't you know, like people aren't raving about it necessarily, or isn't unknown. Like, I'm fine with just picking up a random contemporary because I enjoy the genre that much. Whereas with fantasy, I'm much more picky, and I will only choose what comes highly recommended or what really intrigues me. In the past, I was kind of prone to like picking up a random thriller sometimes. With nonfiction, it has to sound good, or it has to be something I'm interested in, but I will also sometimes pick up a book that I haven't heard a lot of people talking about. But with contemporary, it's like clearly one of my favorite genres because this definitely applies. Okay, so we have year published, so this is kind of a bit random and I might change it for the next year, but this year I tracked like books that came out in 2021, then 2020, then like 2010 to 2019, then before that, but not before I was born, and then like older books than that. And I read 5 books from 2021, and I think some of them ended up in my best books of the year. And I definitely like reading new releases, so I'm quite happy that I read 5 books from 2021 and 8 from 2020. Was the author new to me? And 27 of the books, it was a new author, and 23 I've read from them before. And honestly, this should probably be reversed. I like reading from authors I've already liked. But yeah, I know I'm prone to being distracted by new authors that I haven't read from, but I would definitely like to focus more on the authors that already didn't disappoint me, because there's just a higher chance that I will click with the book again. Then we have rereads, so I don't reread that much, and I think I guess all of these were probably books in a series which I reread to like refresh my memory before continuing with the series. So yeah, not many rereads. Then we have format, and this is also a bit different than in previous years. So we have 31 physical, only 5 audiobooks, which I know it's happening. I haven't been listening to audiobooks because yeah, just like with some lifestyle changes, also like really random stuff like not having good earphones and it's not being in the mood to listen to audiobooks. Yeah, I only listen to 5. Then we have 14 ebooks, which is quite a lot, but should have been even more when it comes to my NetGalley TBR, or also all of the ebooks I have. So yeah, this was a bit unusual. Then we have series versus standalones. So 14 of the books I read were part of a series, which sounds like too few compared to what I feel like. I feel like I read quite a few series, but well, ended up being only 14, and the rest were standalones. Then we have source of the books. So this is also interesting. So as you can see, I read mostly from my own books, and that's quite like overwhelmingly so. And then like 6 books from NetGalley, again, should have been more, but better than nothing. And then 4 from Audible, because I had some books that I like bought before I cancelled. I currently don't have an active subscription, but there are like 3 books that yeah, I purchased before that, so I was going through them. And then like 3 library books. What? That's yeah, pretty unusual for me. So like in the first half of the year I wasn't even living in Prague, so I didn't have access to the library, more or less. I didn't visit much, and there was like a travel ban, whatever. And yeah, I just read a lot of my own books, which is a good thing actually. I obviously love using libraries and think that libraries are great, but in the past I was distracted from the books that were at the top of my TBR and was just borrowing random things that I saw there because they had it, but they often don't have my top picks. So I'm actually glad that I stuck to my physical TBR and maybe ebooks and didn't read that many random books from the library. Although, like, obviously I want to use the library, but I also want to be quite more intentional about it than I was in the past. So far I'm doing that, clearly. Then 2 books from SCRIBD and 1 I read from work. Then I had some stats on diversity, but I won't be going through all of them. There are like a couple of problems with that. When it comes to stuff like author's gender, we often don't know that, and so it's not ideal to just assume. And it's like that with several things. And also the way I measured diversity, for example, like queer representation in the book, the way I tracked it is that the main character has to be queer. Some people might do it differently. I was also tracking like mental health, and sometimes with these things it's really not clear. So, but in general, this one stat I have is that a book was counted as diverse if the author was from a marginalized group, or the main character or one of the main characters were from a marginalized group. So yeah, in this regard, 28 of the books counted as yes and 22 counted as no. And this year I will be tracking it a bit differently, keeping some things in mind and also focusing on specific things, which I will talk about in the goals video. We are near the end, so we have the language. So I read books in English and Czech. I would like to read books in some other languages, maybe like in Spanish, but yeah, there's like a long way till I can do that. But anyway, the majority of the books I read are usually in English. So we have 45 in English and 5 in Czech. Then kind of related but different stat is if the book was translated. As someone who studied translation and worked in the field for a few years, well, I wasn't translating books, but I was proofreading some books. I have a complicated relationship to translations. So that also plays into that, but whatever, let's move on. Okay, now we have one more stat to that. So we have the original language, and you can see that 46 were originally written in English, 2 were written in Czech, 1 was written in Japanese, and 1 was written in Sweden. Swedish, oh my god. I mean, I don't know if it was written in Sweden. Maybe it was written somewhere else, but it was written in Swedish. So yeah, these are my stats for 2021. There were some like realizations and surprises, but mostly I think that like my enjoyment will be better this year, and it's already happening because of more like picking up the individual books and focusing on certain things, further refusing to lean into the peer pressure or just like the FOMO that sometimes happens on booktube. I like reading eclectically and I like stepping out of my comfort zone when it comes to reading, but this year, after the year I had, I think I will be choosing a lot of books that seem a safer choice. But I'm also a mood reader, so we'll see what happens. I was also looking at some people's spreadsheets and stuff and looked at what other things they tracked, and I realized that there aren't that many things I want to track that I don't already track. I think I like maybe added a little bit of something and deleted something in my new spreadsheet, but like for example, I really don't care about the page count. Like I couldn't care less like how many pages I read. I mean, it's on Goodreads, so I can look at it, but I really just don't care. But yeah, that's it for this video. Let me know your thoughts. Was there anything that was surprising or weird to you? Do you also track some reading stats? Talk to me in the comments, or just leave me an emoji to let me know you were here. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!